the ultimate. Can't fuck with it. The ultimate.
This is Constant Elevation, the show for rising military and community leaders that isn't waiting for the future, we are defining the future. I'm your host, Gabriel Bracavilla, and you already know, can't stop, won't stop.
The ultimate.
3, 2, 1. What is up, everybody? You are listening, you are watching to the Constant Elevation podcast. I'm your host, Gabriel Bracavilla. Woo! It is a good day in the Avila household. It's been a good week. Just as the title says, going to cut right to the chase. I have been selected for promotion to the rank of Colonel in the United States Air Force. Yep, United States Air Force. And yeah, it's a celebration. It's a celebration. It's a crazy kind of time. It's been on my mind for since the beginning of the summer, basically, whenever my promotion recommendation form went forward, and just kind of understanding what is the timing and tempo of the process. I've been every week trying to, going into my PERS and looking at the progress of how the board has been commenced, and slowly but surely understood that, hey, so I think something's going to be happening towards our calculus. We actually had like a betting pool, and maybe not a betting pool in the office as far as which week it was the results are going to drop, and it was actually the public release drop, and I lost. I actually picked mid-October. Colonel Hensley, shout out. He actually picked the first week in November, so we owe him a beer. And so it was just kind of like based on the previous boards and kind of the normal processing, how long these things take. And yeah, so I was very, very happy to see my name pop up on the list. I competed in the information warfare competitive category, and I have a line number of 38. So pretty cool. Total 80 in our competitive category. And so I was attempting to do the public math as far as when exactly my increment could show up for promotion and when that start date could happen. I don't really know because it's too early. I will let somebody else figure that math for me. I think I mentioned this before. Maybe I didn't mention on the show, but my idea, though, is I actually want to fly back home to Hawaii because I want to do my promotion ceremony with my grandparents. So my grandfather, he's a retired CW5 in the Coast Guard, and so he was there to help me when I pinned on my butter bars. And so a lot of time has elapsed, and so shout out to Papa. He's actually he'll turn 90 in February, and so it's one of those kind of things of, hey, so maybe he was like, I'm going to be if you get picked up, I'm going to fly out where me and Grandma are going to be there. And I'm like, well, I love you and I appreciate that, Papa, but like, it's a little bit easier for us to travel your way, and it's some reason to go back home. And so depending on the timing and tempo, my goal is to try and fly back home to Hawaii because I want to have my promotion ceremony there with them, my mom, my Gina and the kids, and as much as family and friends we can surround with us. And so it's a good celebration. I hit 20 years in the Air Force next month, actually, December 19th. Actually, it happens to be Benjamin's birthday as well. And so I met my goal. I've been an on-time promotee the entire duration of my career, and I'm happy to have made a goal that I had when I was a young lieutenant and trying to understand, like, hey, so this is the kind of thing I want to do. I was all in. I did have one in the Air Force. I did one instance where I wanted to get out when I was a captain, and I didn't. And a lot of hard work. Hard work pays off, not going to lie. There is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into this, and it was a good culmination of all those efforts. But now, and I'm going to give a shout out to one of my mentors, Colonel Trish Chank. We were talking during the AFA convention, and then she was like, she actually, not kidding, like thumped me in my chest with her hand, and she's like, you need to think about these things. And I was kind of telling her, I think here's what's going to happen in the near future. And she was like, well, assuming that you make Colonel and that good news happens, now what? I go, what? She's like, what are you going to do? I don't understand, man. Like, I got to wait for the process. She's like, no, I know all that part. I'm asking, like, now what? Assuming you get that rank, what do you want to do with that newfound responsibility? And I was like, okay. She said, don't answer. Obviously, you need to. She's a unofficial creative genius behind this show. In other words, she gives me a bunch of ideas and then may or may not charge me on the side. Just kidding. But like the idea of now what? I've achieved one of the goals I have. I've achieved becoming a senior leader in the Air Force, been recognized in my career field, and I'm going to become a colonel, and just the 06 kind of I would call it the gravity around that rank and what that means in the Air Force. Are you prepared for these things? And I'm like, okay, when you ask me like that, man, I got to think about it. So I've been thinking about it for like a month and some change, and just really what that means. And so, I mean, part of the near term now, what is, for instance, I have to understand what it means to be a colonel. And so as much as I'm prepared, and I truly believe that I can operate at this next level in the Air Force, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know because I haven't been a colonel, and I've been mentored by enough colonels to where as they stepped in, they're like, oh yeah, I'm totally ready. And then some other colonels and or general officers would be like, you don't know shit. Like, calm down. You're gonna learn in the first couple years what it actually means to be a colonel. And so I'm looking forward to that. I don't know what the end state and the answer of that is, but it's basically a thing of just for instance, I just started getting involved in some of the colonels groups and the game plans and how my career field and the management of the 06 is going to happen. And so this is a brand new environment for me. And so I have to understand how I'm going to navigate these waters smartly. And it will result in an assignment this summer. And so we'll be moving this summer depending on wherever the 06 positions are at. And also trying to figure out positionings for some future goals that I'd like to do. I still like to be a group commander. I personally want to be a mission support group commander. I just want to get back. I want to get back to an airfield. I do think some of my cyber brothers and sisters are much more qualified to lead some of the cyber groups. So I would let them lead that charge, and I can find my way in where the Air Force needs me to find and lead the right team if and when I get that opportunity. And so it's just new things. Like what does that mean to be a colonel? And I was thinking about like how this is it's a completely different and way larger than when I transitioned from being a company grade officer to a field grade officer, so a captain to a major. And that was a big jump. You know, obviously it's your expectations get higher as you go into the FGO ranks, and this one is still the same, where it's like, oh no, you make a significant jump from lieutenant colonel to colonel. And so what does all that mean? And just really, I'm going to have to really tune my radar to just kind of pay attention. And I'm going to be taking a lot of mentorship. Luckily, there's a lot of 06s that both in the joint environment, Air Force, and otherwise where I work at JFHU Doden. So I'll be listening to them and trying to get those pockets of when we're not, doing our job, trying to understand like how can I learn from you guys, guys and gals, and how I can become a good colonel. Then I started thinking about like I started going through like now what, because I went through some of my older, like I have my I Love Me folder that has all of my I keep all of my performance feedback forms and my OPR and stuff like that. And I was kind of reading through some of the things as a company grade officer. And there are some sketches as far as like, here's the path you need to do. You can imagine I started off as a 3-3S. And so I kind of followed that career path and that pyramid. And that path is significantly different now. So part of me, I believe, is an expectation of colonel is understand and make sure I shape what is the new path to develop the new colonels behind me. I do believe that's going to be one of the charges we have here, is like find out who's going to be the next generation of leaders, find those opportunities, challenge them, see if they're going to rise to the occasion. And so kind of going through some of my old papers, and it's like, yeah, so what was I thinking about when I was a young lieutenant or a captain? Like when I looked up to the colonels, what was I thinking? I was like, wow, okay, they have all these responsibilities. They know what to carry themselves a certain way. They all drive, for whatever reason, a lot of the colonels that I work for, they all drove Volvo station wagons. It's a reliable car, I assume. It looks reasonable, I assume. I also made it a point that I will never drive a Volvo station wagon. I put in this energy to make sure people remind me that I don't actually buy a Volvo station wagon. It could be very practical. I won't drive one of those because there was too many of them for the colonels when I was growing up. And so that idea of how do I present myself, and can I function as a colonel to make sure that I have a connection, I'm not so far away from any of the officer ranks, the enlisted ranks, to be like, while we all have different ranks and different positions, I still want to be an approachable leader. I don't want to be a disconnected leader to the point where I can't interact and I'm just in this weird 06 and above kind of framework or whatever environment, because I'm not going to be a positive asset, and that's not the kind of leader that I want to be. I think some of my behavior may or may not change. I don't want it to be honest, and for the public record, I don't want my behavior to change just because I'm going to wear the 06 rank. I believe that I've grown into my leadership style, and if I'm afforded additional opportunities, those opportunities are going to stay the same, and I'm going to press and keep on moving forward, because I believe I believe in the voice that I have. I believe in the thoughts that I have, and they're not always going to be perfect or going to be, they're up for adjustments as needed, because I can always learn from anybody. But like, I believe I have some talents that I can afford the Air Force, that I can provide for the Air Force, to make sure that we're developing the right leaders, especially moving into, the future and beyond. We're going into 2022 next year, and like, who are the young incoming officers at the lieutenant level? I actually had some feedback paperwork as far as like when I was the MSG exec at one time, I saw an email from my current boss to my next boss where he was basically saying, hey, Gabe is a shiny penny. We want to make sure we groom this future leader, future commander, take care of him. And I just saw some of those kind of things. I'm like, yeah, so how do I find those CGOs out there? The ones that have the talent, and I want to try and, assuming the performance obviously follows that, but like, yeah, we want to make sure they have the opportunity to continue to lead. And I think that's part of again, I don't know, that's part of the charge of being a colonel. It's like, we're responsible for grooming the next generation, grooming our replacements. That's what I realized. I have that phrase I borrowed from Gumbo, that we have a lot less runway in front of us than we do behind. And so I want to make sure that I'm leaving the Air Force a much better place with much better leaders than when I entered the Air Force. And so I take that responsibility to heart. I think the other piece that I think about is I want to make sure that I don't become a bureaucratic roadblock. Just saying it very plainly. When I start to operate in certain higher echelons of organizational forms or units, as far as like staffs, or that's major commands, combatant commands, whatever that happens to be, I want to make sure that I'm going to be an agent for change. I'm going to be an agent for maybe being a positive disruptor. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to be that guy of like, hey, so everybody has, or there are good and great ideas out there. How can we leverage those? And if I'm in a position to try and help foster and push some of those good and great ideas forward, I want to do it. Even if that means like where someone is saying, you might, that might be kind of risky. Like, risky for what? Like, what am I risking? Like, I've achieved my goal. I'm a colonel. Like, what are we talking about? I don't have anything to risk. I have only things to positively gain, because this is the idea that while it may make you uncomfortable, if we believe in it and we've done our homework or due diligence and this makes sense to us, we're going to try and shoot for it. And so let's try and do those things. I don't want to side on the risk. I don't want to be risk averse. I want to be risk managed and keep on moving forward. And so I don't want to become one of those senior officers. And it's going to have to be me being cognizant of my assigned roles or responsibilities. It's not only about me, it's not the whole thing of just shining and just trying to get the shine for myself and or my team. That's not the point. The point is trying to make change for the right reasons, not just for making the sake of change, but for the right reasons, because we've done our homework, we understand the problem, we know the solution. Let's try it, and if it fails, that's not a fail. That's a learning point. Keep on moving forward. And so that's what I want to try and avoid. There's definitely things that I want to be as a colonel, and then there's definitely things I don't want to be as a colonel. One of the things I do want to be as a colonel is continuing to be a good role model for my family. And so, for instance, this is a kind of funny story. Role model connection to my family. So last week, in October, we started watching Nightmare Before Christmas and Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, as we always as a family. We watch a lot of the holiday movies. And so I mentioned out loud, I was like, hey, I think this is going to be the last time where all four is going to be here, because Lana's going to college next year. And then as there was like a weird pause, it's like, I don't want to think about it. I'm like, I don't want to think about it either, but I'm definitely cognizant of this. And so I'm very thankful of the fact that, my career has enabled me to have, you can't have all the family memories. It's part of the service of being in the military, but the ones that I have, I cherish. And so fast forward, it was actually on Tuesday on public release. So I come home doing all the things. I already talked to my wife for like a little bit, and then talking to Lana, and then we're like, hey, so someone needs to take out the trash. She's like, hey, Dad, guess what? I'm like, what's up? You haven't heard? I'm like, no. And then she's like, yeah, so I got contact. I earned the President's Scholarship to go to NAU. I was like, oh, snap, babe, that's cool. She's like, yeah, it's like $11,000 a year. I'm like, yes, I like it. It's an academic achievement kind of award. I'm like, yeah, that's totally awesome. And she's like, yeah, so can you take out the trash? I go, what? And then she's like, yeah, so I earned all this money and it's going to be really cool. So do you mind taking out the trash? I was like, oh, okay, so if we're going to play that game, here's what I did. Oh, bam! I got promoted to colonel. And she was like, oh, I guess I'm taking out the trash. I was like, no, love, we can take out the trash together. I'm just saying, but if you wanted to go, you're not going to win this. And so I was sort of joking, not joking, but the idea of her achievement and just kind of like continuing with her life, all of our lives are going to be, my family, they don't know, they're not going to see any different necessarily that I'm a colonel. Depending on what kind of jobs I have, it is what it is. Dad's going to do these things. They just see me as me. And I love that. I like it. I love that, actually. And so that idea of staying grounded and staying connected to my family, that has to be consistent, even going into that next echelon of leadership to be an 06. I have to stay. That's the uniforms I'm gonna hang that up one day, and I want to have a strong family to fall back onto. So that's going to be consistent, a non-negotiable for me. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. All I'm saying is my family will remain up front and first and foremost for my priorities. So, but yeah, it's definitely been a great week for the Avila Ohana. Depending on where things go and how opportunities and the new things I'm going to have to learn. But then I had to go back to work. Like as much as the celebration was going, hey, so we still got to talk to the boss and prepare for the briefings and get to, yep, got it. We'll work on these things. We have the annual campaign order is not going to write itself. And so I got to go back to work. And so I'm just happy to share this good news with all of you. I appreciate all. I've been also, here's a quick last thing. I tried as much as possible to contact my previous leadership to say thank you. I directly called my chain of command that was involved here at JFHU Doden prior to the changeover in the summer, because they were the ones, it was both Army officers, an Army colonel and Army two-star. They were directly responsible for pushing me in that right direction, giving me opportunities to lead a division in J34. They wrote my OPRs and my PRFs. And so those things really, really, I think, positioned me and their belief in me that I earned this rank for promotion. So I directly called them to say thank you, and then tried to contact as much as possible some of my former mentors and former leaders, actually they're still mentors, but former leaders, to be like, hey, so thank you for believing in me, contributing to this accomplishment. I couldn't have done without you. And all of the when you post something about getting promoted, your LinkedIn blows up by 7,000%. Apparently, that's cool. And then just for everybody saying congratulations on social media, thank you very, very much. Yeah, at some point in time, probably next year, 2022, Colonel Avila, 06. Weird. It's all good, though. All right, team. Hope you guys are staying warm-ish, kind of safe and always warm. It's kind of getting chillier here in Maryland, but until then, my head's a little bit higher this week. And I'll still have to continue for a while to figure out what that means of, like, now what? What does it mean to be a colonel? What do I want to be as a colonel? And I expect all of you to hold me accountable to these. I'm recording this episode because I want to look back on it as I once I make the rank, and I'm serving in it for a few months or years. And am I still going to be that person? Am I still excited? Am I holding true to myself, or did I change for some reason, and why? Why aren't you trying to become the officer and the leader that you want to follow? What happened? What made you get off the path and get back on the path? Or let's freaking go. You have found a niche, or you found a place in the Air Force that you can leverage your talents, and we'll see how it goes forward from there. So until next week, team. Peace.